There is one category of people that has fascinated me for a long time. These individuals are brilliant Jewish people, and the category is Jewish brilliance. Although every nation and ethnic group has smart and simple people, deep and shallow, sensitive and crude, in this essay we'll be talking about intellect and intellectual Jewish people. Jewish people are universally admired for their intelligence, high IQ, for the great quantity of Nobel Award laureates on one side, and respected for their extreme historic adversities, pain, and sufferings during centuries of persecution and extermination. Due to a recent rise of anti-Semitism, it is especially important to talk about this ethnic group of people, discussing both their painful history and their brilliant minds in their contribution to the world. Thomas Cahill started his book The Gift of the Jews by saying, "The Jews started it all. Without the Jews we would see, hear, even feel the world differently. There is simply no one else remotely like them, the inventors of Western culture." This is a video essay. While listening to this essay and seeing multiple images of brilliant people, please think about it as a long and meaningful toast for Jewish people and their extraordinary accomplishments despite centuries of adversities, the toast that carries the weight of history and expresses its meaning through the sincere appreciation of their astonishing achievements. The video consists of 6 interconnected parts. Part 1, Jewish brilliance, mathematics and medicine and other related fields of science. Part 2, Jewish brilliance, music and cinema. Part 3, Jewish Nobel laureates, brilliant minds. Part 4, human qualities of brilliant Jewish people. Part 5, anti-Semitism and how to challenge it. And Part 6, conclusion, a tribute to the Jewish contribution to the world and Jewish brilliance. I want to start with a famous saying of Friedrich Nietzsche, who was discussing meaning in life and strong sense of purpose that can help people to navigate adversities and suffering in their lives, help to survive, which is the essence of existentialism philosophy. He wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." From hardships of Ukraine and Moldova, from broken bodies, shattered glass, and whispered prayers of grief in Russia, Ukraine, and Germany, from centuries of pogroms, massacres, extermination, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust, emerged minds that would change the world. Jews, despite centuries of persecution, rose to extraordinary heights in science, music, and philosophy. They carried with them not only the scars of history, but also an unbreakable spirit and a relentless pursuit of excellence. One of the greatest Jewish minds of the 20th century was Albert Einstein. He revolutionized physics with his theory of relativity, published in 1905 and then in 1916, altering humanity's understanding of space and time as a new and fourth dimension. His work paved the way for modern physics and nuclear energy, making him a symbol of intellectual brilliance and perseverance. This ultimate Nobel laureate, the father of them all, the genius extraordinary, this Jewish man deserved to be named as the person of century in 1999 by the Time magazine for his scientific brilliance. The legacy of Jewish scientific excellence extends to brilliant Nobel-winning physicists of the 20th century. Let's briefly mention some of these extraordinary Jewish people. Niels Bohr, who helped lay the foundation of atomic structure. Max Born, a pioneer in quantum mechanics. James Franck, who revolutionized both theoretical and applied quantum physics. Isidor Isaac Rabi, who discovered nuclear magnetic resonance, a basis of modern MRI technology. The four mentioned extraordinary Jewish physicists, Nobel laureates, Bohr, Frank, Einstein, and Rabi, four giants who helped bridge the gap from classical Newton's physics to quantum mechanics and unveiled the invisible rules that govern our universe at its most fundamental level. Who else? Albert Michelson, the first American to win a Nobel Prize in Science, who measured the speed of light, laying the foundation for the Einstein's relativity theory. Karl Schwarzschild, known for his discovery of the metric as the first known solution to Einstein equations of general relativity. Steven Weinberg, who deepened the understanding of the particle physics. Lev Landau, a Soviet brilliant physicist who made groundbreaking contribution to quantum mechanics. Eugene Wigner, a Hungarian-American theoretical physicist who contributed to the theory of the atomic nucleus and the elementary particles. Edward Teller, also a Hungarian-American theoretical physicist known as the father of the hydrogen bomb. Leo Szilard, another Hungarian-American physicist who developed a nuclear chain reaction that led to the development of nuclear energy and who co-wrote with Eugene Wigner, Edward Teller, and Albert Einstein a prodigious Einstein-Szilard letter in 1939 to President Franklin D. Roosevelt to warn him about the potential of a German atomic bomb and to urge him and to urge the United States to develop its own nuclear weapon program. Robert Oppenheimer, a theoretical physicist who served as a director of the Manhattan Project, often called the father of atomic bomb. Richard Feynman, who deepened our understanding of quantum electrodynamics. Amy Noether, the woman who gave us the laws of the universe but was nearly forgotten, a mathematical genius who defied the odds in a time when women were rarely welcomed in science, earned a PhD and revolutionized theoretical physics, influencing both quantum mechanics and Einstein general relativity. Einstein himself called her the most significant creative mathematical genius of her time. And many, many more brilliant Jewish intellectual physicists of the highest order. From oppression to extraordinary heights in physics. One of the most famous scientific meetings of the 20th century, 5th 1927 Solvay International Conference in Brussels, Belgium, that considered the high point of the debate over the interpretation of quantum mechanics and discussed electrons and protons. It featured 29 brilliant minds, and among them 17 Nobel Prize winners. Often called the most intelligent picture ever taken, featured 5 Jewish physicists from 29 attendees, representing 1 out of 6 scientists at that international conference and almost 1 out of 3 for the Nobel Prize winners: Bohr, Born, Einstein, and Pauli. Also, among 6 founding fathers of quantum mechanics at the beginning of the 20th century in that famous picture, Bohr, Heisenberg, Kramer, Dirac, Born, and Pauli, 50%, were Jewish: Born, Bohr, and Pauli. From oppression to extraordinary heights. In mathematics. In the realm of mathematics and economics, Jewish people were also very prominent. As I mentioned, Amy Noether, as we already said, the most significant creative mathematical genius according to Einstein of her time. John von Neumann, the father of game theory and the pioneer of computing, transformed strategic thinking. Milton Friedman, an American economist and statistician who won the 1976 Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics and known for developing theory of monetarism that reshaped modern economics. Vladimir Arnold, a genius Russian mathematician who was nominated for the Fields Medal the highest honor a mathematician could receive and influenced generations of world mathematicians, Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel-winning Israeli-American psychologist, a Nobel Memorial Prize winner in economic sciences, who reshaped our understanding of human decision-making and behavioral economics, influencing many economic fields from finance to public policy. All this Jewish brilliance in physics, math, and economics. Be kind to these people. What about one of the most complex intellectual games in the world? Chess, that requires deep intellect and creativity in its pure form to win. Who are chess people? The world of chess is epitomized by Jewish chess masters. Jewish players and chess theoreticians have long been involved in the game of chess and have significantly contributed to the development of this intellectual game. Of the 13 undisputed chess world champions, 6, about 50%, were Jewish or had Jewish ancestry. William Steinitz, Emanuel Lasker, Mikhail Botvinnik, Mikhail Tal, Bobby Fischer, and Garry Kasparov. Most of the modern school chess players and most of the chess theoreticians are predominantly Jewish. Be kind to these people. From persecution to extraordinary heights. In medicine, the legacy of Jewish scientific medical excellence also demonstrates extraordinary physicians and bacteriologists like Jonas Salk, the eldest son of Russian Jewish immigrants who developed the polio vaccine, eradicating the disease in much of the world and saving millions of lives. Jewish lives, Christian lives, Muslim lives, Hindu lives, human lives. Waldemar Hafkin, who developed vaccines against cholera and plague, saving countless lives and pioneering modern bacteriology. Paul Ehrlich, a Nobel Prize winner in physiology and medicine who pioneered immunology, chemotherapy, hematology. Ulrich shared his Nobel Prize with another eminent Russian Jewish immunologist, Ilya Mechnikov. Karl Landsteiner, a Nobel Prize winner in physiology and medicine, who discovered the main blood groups and often called the father of transfusion medicine. Salman Waxman, a son to Russian Jewish immigrants, an American inventor, a Nobel Prize laureate, biochemist and microbiologist who discovered streptomycin, the first antibiotic effective against tuberculosis, dramatically reducing global mortality rate. Baruch Blumberg, an American Jewish physician and geneticist who identified the hepatitis B virus and developed a vaccine that has saved millions from liver disease. Blumberg was co-recipient of the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine with Daniel Gajusek, an American physician and researcher of Hungarian Jewish descent. Gertrude Elion, a daughter of Lithuanian Jewish immigrants and Nobel Prize winner in Physiology and Medicine, a chemist who developed groundbreaking drugs for leukemia, malaria, and organ transplants, revolutionizing modern physiology and pharmacology. Fritz Haber, who synthesized ammonia and received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Synthesized ammonia. It estimated that this discovery of ammonia played a crucial role in global food production, supporting food supply for nearly half the world's population. Fritz Haber was called one of the most important scientists and industrial chemists in human history. Rosalind Franklin, a British Jewish chemist and X-ray crystallographer who pioneered work in DNA genetic research and played a crucial role in uncovering the double helix even before Watson and Crick's DNA discovery, a global achievement of modern genetics. Robert Ledley pioneered the use of digital computers in biology and medicine and revolutionized medical imaging. Paul Zoll, a Jewish American cardiologist who saved countless lives with the invention of cardiac pacemaker and cardiac defibrillator. Christian lives, Jewish lives, Muslim lives, all human lives in the invention of the cardiac pacemaker and cardiac defibrillator. Jewish healing brilliance, medical healing brilliance for all people, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, agnostic, all people, for all humanity. Be kind to these people. From oppression to extraordinary heights in music, complex and enchanting world of melodies that require immense musical imagination and deep melodic perception. Who are musical wonderkinds and intuitive tunesmiths? Who are music people? The legacy of Jewish musicians extraordinary are widely known. From the Eastern Europe to Western Europe to America, Jews are known for their amazing musical talent in composing or performing music. Depth and brilliance. Depth and brilliance in music composition and interpretation is unrivaled among Jewish people. Driven from the ancient Talmudic melodies and transferred from generation to generation among this ethnic group with many cultural interpretations, and through plethora of international languages, music has been part and parcel of the Jewish soul and profoundly essential for the life of Jewish people over many centuries. From classical to hip-hop, Jewish musicians and composers have shaped almost every genre. Let's examine a Jewish superpower of the last 200 years in music. Felix Mendelssohn, one of the most popular German Jewish composers of the Romantic era. Gustav Mahler, one of the greatest Austrian Jewish late Romantic composers who influenced 20th century classical music. Arnold Schoenberg, an Austrian and American composer, music theorist, teacher, and writer who transformed the practice of harmony and motifs in 20th century classical music. Leonard Bernstein, a legendary American composer and conductor, a child of Russian, Ukrainian, Jewish immigrants, brought classical music into the mainstream and composed timeless works like West Side Story. Benny Goodman, the king of swing, a son of Jewish immigrants from Poland and Lithuania, he broke racial barriers in jazz and popularized big band music across America. Artie Shaw, a leading swing clarinetist and band leader. Stephen Sondheim, legendary Broadway composer of Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods. Itzhak Perlman, a violin virtuoso, a son of Polish Jewish immigrants, whose technical brilliance and deep emotional expression made him one of the greatest musicians of all time. Irving Berlin, who wrote hundreds of songs, in fact about 500 songs, and was called the greatest songwriter that has ever lived, a Russian-born Jewish-American composer and songwriter whose music forms a large part of the great American songbook. Berlin received numerous honors, including an Academy Award, a Grammy Award, and a Tony Award. He also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1977. Broadcast journalist Walter Cronkite stated Irving Berlin, Jewish immigrant, helped write the story of this country, the United States of America, capturing the best of who we are, Americans, and the dreams that shape our lives. George Gershwin, composer of Rhapsody in Blue in American in Paris, a son of Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, he blended jazz and classical music to create a uniquely American sound. Andrew Lloyd Webber, British composer of Phantom of the Opera and Cats. John Williams, son of a Lithuanian Jewish mother, a prolific film composer who composed music for Star Wars, Jaws, Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, and more. Let's talk about legendary classical American pianist like Arthur Rubinstein, Vladimir Horowitz, and Menachem Pressler. They were extraordinary, passionate classic piano players of the 20th century. Bob Dylan, born Robert Zimmerman, a poetic and revolutionary genius, a singer-songwriter, a grandchild of Jewish immigrants who ran from pogroms in Odessa, Ukraine, who reshaped folk and rock music with his astonishing, poignant, touching, and distressing lyrics. Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they are allowed to be free? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, earning a Nobel Prize in Literature for his lyrical contributions. The first musician and the only songwriter who won the Nobel Prize. Paul Simon, half of Simon and Garfunkel, known for folk music influences. His genius found millions of people in the world who needed his sensible melodies as a bridge over troubled water to ease the mind. Billy Joel, one of the best-selling musicians of all time, blended rock, pop, and classical elements, a piano man of sad and sweet melodies, who would give you nostalgia of love when you are in the mood for a melody. Leonard Cohen, one of the most influential singer-songwriter, poet, and novelist of the 20th century, a son of Lithuanian Jewish immigrants who immigrated to Canada, the best songwriter of his generation according to Bob Dylan, he, with his deep spirituality, wrote haunting lyrics and melodies, including Hallelujah, and left an indelible mark on music and literature, exploring love, faith, politics, and human suffering. I did my best. It wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I've told the truth. I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. I truly believe that only a Jewish genius like Leonard Cohen could express a multi-generational suffering of his people through his music, so emotionally deep and insanely moving. We could continue this list of Jewish musicians for many pages and many hours, but please search Jewish American composers on internet and you will be surprised to see hundreds of names of prominent musicians, both composers and performers, most of them European immigrants of the first and second generations, who shaped the American music of their adopted country more than any other ethnic group. But don't just examine American Jewish music history. Search any European country. You will be surprised to discover a disproportionate number of celebrated musicians of Jewish ancestry. From Felix Mendelssohn, classic German composer of the early 19th century, who was baptized into the Christian Church at age 7, to Irving Berlin, Russian-born immigrant to America of the 20th century who was proud of his Jewish upbringing. European and American music benefited enormously from Jewish musicians, who have been composing Christian music from symphonies and chamber music to jazz and pop, becoming part of the great European and American musical anthology. All this incredible music, with its depth and vulnerability, has been composed by Jews, who in their compositions were moving from minor keys to major keys and back, creating music for all humanity, all people, believers and atheists, who have an open ear for goodness. Just to get a sense of the level of music depth and quality, these are published reviews of some Jewish outstanding performers, pianists and violinists. Number 1. Two of the world's leading violinists performed together for the first time in 1977. Not since Yehudi Menuhin and Isaac Stern played together in Edinburgh in 1953 have these two violinists of this caliber seriously set out to harness their individual talents, to the pleasures of playing together. The harmonious duo of Itzhak Perlman and Pinchas Zukerman at London's Royal College of Music. Number 2. The 1958 recording of Bach's double violin concerto featuring Yehudi Menuhin and David Oistrakh remains a landmark in classical music history. This collaboration between two of the 20th century greatest violinists brings a rare depth of expression and technical brilliance to Bach's masterpiece, creating a mesmerizing performance that continues to captivate listeners. Number 3. Menachem Pressler, at the age 94, delivers an unforgettable piano performance of Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor. Marvel at the subtlety and artistic sensitivity of the legendary pianist. Number 4. Vladimir Horowitz in 1986 Moscow Conservatory of Music, Schumann's Traummerei. The piano's spoken melody, filled with nostalgia and longing, seemed to bring the entire room to tears. Many in the audience were overcome with emotions and wept openly. This performance was pure, undiluted artistry. Horowitz has returned not just to Russia, but to the hearts of those who had never forgotten him. Number 5. Theo Gertler, a modern, amazing virtuoso, Jewish-Hungarian violin player at age 11. Depth, again depth and depth and depth, depth and brilliance. That is how his music has been consistently described. Age 11. From age 11 to age 94, artistic sensitivity, depth, and musical brilliance. Be kind to these people. Who can compose the music or play an instrument that can move you to tears? Jewish musicians and composers left an indelible mark on American and international culture. These musicians created the foundation of American and European music and entertained presidents and prime ministers and millions of people all over the world. About 50% of all recipients of the American Academy Award for the Best Original Song and Best Musical Scoring are Jews, 50%. About 60% of all recipients of the Tony Award for the Best Musical Production and Best Original Score of a musical are Jews, 60%. From oppression to extraordinary heights in music. Jewish musical brilliance. Be kind to these people. From hardships of Ukraine and Moldova, from broken bodies, shattered glass, and whispered prayers of grief in Russia, Ukraine, and Germany, from centuries of pogroms, massacres, extermination, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust, emerged minds that would change the world. Jews, despite centuries of persecution, rose to extraordinary heights in music, science, philosophy. They carried with them not only the scars of history, but also an unbreakable spirit and relentless pursuit of excellence, from persecution to extraordinary heights. In psychology, Jewish psychologists have been instrumental in creating the field of modern psychology. The fundamentals of several psychological movements can be traced directly to Jewish values, ideas, and practices, and Jews in the 20th century were at the forefront of research about the psyche and the varieties of human behavior. Psychoanalysis was founded by Sigmund Freud, and with notable exception of Carl Jung, most of its early proponents were also Jews. Why are the Jewish people strong in psychology, you might ask? Some intellectual historians speculate that it was a particular Jewish personality and cultural traits and Talmudic tradition that led Jews to explore their people's sufferings, asking questions: why? Why us? trying to understand the Jewish personality and character, and by extension the overall human behavior. Based on immensely painful history full of physical and emotional sufferings, Jewish philosophers and psychologists professed a sad but profound Kabbalistic wisdom that pain and suffering were an integral part of human experience, and therefore life. Pain is a part of life. They admitted that life, with all its suffering, could be seen as a catalyst for personal transformation, growth, and spiritual development, and that we, human beings, should not bear our ancestors' pain. We, human beings, should not bear our ancestors' pain because each generation has its own sufferings. Analyzing human behavior, Jewish psychologists and psychoanalysts originated the fundamentals of psychology that revolutionized the field of psychological sciences in its early days. From oppression to extraordinary heights in writing. Jewish literature of the 19th and 20th century spans every type of prose, with names like Marcel Proust, Heinrich Heine, Boris Pasternak, Sholem Aleichem, Shmuel Yosef Agnon, first Jewish writer to receive a Nobel Prize in Literature, Isaac Bashevis Singer, Nobel Prize in Literature, Isaac Asimov, Saul Bellow, Nobel Prize in Literature, Elie Wiesel, Nobel Peace Prize, Nelly Sachs, Nobel Prize in Literature, Joseph Heller, Catch-22, Emma Lazarus, David Mamet, Pulitzer Prize, The Adventures of Augie March, Philip Roth, United States National Book Award, Bernard Malamud, Pulitzer Prize, J.D. Salinger, The Catcher in the Rye, Herman Wouk, The Caine Mutiny, Pulitzer Prize, Lemony Snicket, pen name of Daniel Handler, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Unbelievable Ayn Rand, pen name for Alisa Rosenbaum, Atlas Shrugged, Joseph Brodsky, Nobel Prize in Literature, Bob Dylan, the only poet-songwriter who received the Nobel Prize in Literature, and many, many more. Jewish literary brilliance. Be kind to these people. Jewish people are founding fathers of Hollywood and cinema industry too, and not only in America. International cinematic history has an astonishing and disproportionate to other ethnicities amount of Jewish movie producers and directors, shaping the film industry in numerous ways in front of and behind the camera, from directing to acting to composing. An astonishing number of Jewish comedians all over the world, wandering Jews, through sad self-depreciation, poignant humor, sharp irony and dark sarcasm, have been reimagining and retelling 100-year-old jokes to a laughing world, in attempt to calm a disturbed Jewish soul, and in the process, souls of millions of people of any beliefs. This poignant Jewish humor has always been the best way to learn about human imperfections and fragility of our world. How about Jewish technological geniuses of the 21st century? Martin Cooper developed the first mobile phone in 1972 and changed global communication forever. Sergey Brin and Larry Page from Google transformed how people access information. Larry Ellison from Oracle, Mark Zuckerberg from Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook, Steve Ballmer from Microsoft, Michael Dell from Dell Technologies, Michael Bloomberg from Bloomberg LP, and many other extraordinary modern-day visionaries revolutionized our modern computer technology and communication systems. What about Jewish revolutionaries? Centuries of persecution also contributed to the fact that there has been so many prominent Jewish revolutionaries. The power of intellect and desire for change, even radical, longing to prevent future pogroms, holocausts, desire to have freedom and democracy after centuries of oppression, led many Jewish intellectuals with outstanding oratorial skills towards politics and political changes in Europe and America. Insulted, injured, and oppressed, Jews were part and parcel of political transformations and revolutionary movements in many parts of the world. In an American Revolution, this was Francis Salvador, the first Jewish person fighting for American independence and elected to public office in 1774. In Europe, it was Karl Marx, end of the 19th century philosopher, economist, and revolutionary, who wrote the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, and whose work had an enormous influence on the world politics. Leon Trotsky, Lev Bronstein, was one of the most prominent and influential figures of the Russian Revolution of 1917. Many European Jews, due to continuous persecution and oppression, moved to Ottoman Palestine at the beginning of the 20th century, following the call of Theodor Herzl, the father of political Zionism, and became the founders of the State of Israel, like David Ben-Gurion, Ziv Jabotinsky, Golda Meir, Chaim Weizmann, Menachem Begin, and many, many others. Insulted, injured, and oppressed, Jews were part of major political transformation in the world. So, Jewish Nobel laureates, Jewish brilliance, let's talk about it. Alfred Nobel, a Swedish inventor, engineer, and industrialist, who in 1895 established the highest ranking award for an exceptional intellectual achievement, dedicated his honorary prize for the greatest benefit to humankind. Greatest benefit not to science, greatest benefit to humankind. These annual Nobel Prizes since 1901 have been given by a special Swedish committee to brilliant individuals in the field of physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and then later economic sciences and peace. Scientists who receive these prizes are outstanding intellectuals who demonstrate an extreme intuition, incredible depth of perception that is a very rare gift, and therefore make them luminaries and visionaries, and often people call them geniuses or prophets. It is well known that disproportionately high number of Jewish Nobel laureates is one of the most fascinating intellectual phenomena in modern history. Of the 1965 individual recipients of the Nobel Prize and the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economical Sciences between 1901 and 2023, 217 have been Jews, or people with at least one Jewish parent. This is 22%. It means that Jewish individuals have won about 22% of all Nobel Prizes, about every fourth, spanning fields of physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, economics, and peace. In other words, Jewish Nobel laureates number at least 11,000 percentage above average. 11,000 percentage above average. Jews have been awarded all 6 of the Nobel Foundation's award, including 41% of total in economics, 26% of total in medicine, 25% of total in physics, and 19% of total in chemistry. Despite making up less than 0.2% of the world population, 0.2% of the world's population, only 16 million people out of 8.2 billion people on Earth, their share of winners is 110 times their proportion of the world's population. So who and why are so many Nobel laureates and intellectuals of the highest order Jewish? We already discussed Jewish brilliance in physics, and math and chess and computer technology and music and psychology. Jewish culture, which prioritizes education, debate, and independent thought, has fostered an environment where deep philosophical reasoning and critical analysis thrive. There isn't a single reason, but a combination of cultural, historical, and intellectual traditions, environmental factors, as well as, and I would like to prove it today, genetic factors contributes to this phenomenon. Let's first discuss environmental factors. Number one, emphasis on education and intellectual pursuits. Jewish culture places an immense value on learning. From childhood, questioning, debating, and analytical thinking are encouraged. Talmudic study, debating religious texts, teaches critical thinking, pattern recognition, and deep reasoning, skills vital for scientific breakthroughs. Talmudic scholars teach to question everything, praising the one who not just memorized, but deeply analyzed the sacred text, honoring the mental training above all. Number two environmental factor, adversity breeds innovation. Jewish communities historically faced all kinds of anti-Semitism, persecution, exile, discrimination, Holocaust. Necessity forced them to develop problem-solving skills, survival, adaptability, resilience. Over many centuries, Jews had to turn suffering into scholarship. Number three environmental factor, urbanization and access to institutions. Since legal emancipation had been achieved throughout Central and Western Europe, year 1870 and onward, Jewish people moved from living in segregated Eastern European ghettos to centers of European thought, Paris, London, Vienna, Berlin, finally receiving equality and access to elite universities and research centers. Since that time, the end of the 19th century, disproportional Jewish accomplishments in art and sciences could be demonstrated that continue to this day. These three environmental factors created an environment where Nobel caliber minds could thrive. But genetics is important. Research has shown that Ashkenazi Jews have an unusually high average IQ with strength in abstract thinking, pattern recognition, and problem solving. Traits crucial for scientific and artistic innovation, as well as on tests that measure verbal and reasoning skills. Genetic is tied to intelligence. Centuries of persecution produced an intense desire of Jewish people to survive by solving problems. Environmental sadness, especially over the last 3 centuries, related to a constant persecution of one ethnic group in a small European continent led to a drastic change in human psyche. Behaviors and human traits and qualities of this group solely directed to survival. Defined as epigenetics, or science how environment influences our genes, continuing physical persecution of Jews over many centuries shaped Jewish DNA, creating their intellectual and behavioral traits in the modern world. Survival mechanism produced intelligence in Jewish people more than in any other ethnic group. Genetics is linked to a specific extraordinary ability of a particular individual, as well as the people of a specific ethnic group. Talent in math or physics cannot be explained by environmental factors alone. With all the Jewish educational and cultural values, environmental factors cannot explain predilection to abstract thinking. It's a genetic trait. Abstract three-dimensional thinking is a genetic gift that a particular individual either has or does not. The same applies to having a musical gene that makes an individual want to play or compose music at any circumstances, in any epoch, at any age. This very specific aptitude for music and its unique artistic expression, this inherent ability to express what you hear playing inside your brain, is a genetic trait that is in abundance present in the Jewish ethnic group. How can you explain the musical genius that produces so many Jewish composers, pianists, violinists, and musical instrument virtuosos? Environmental factors alone cannot explain having a good ear for music, the predilection for melodies and harmonies, a natural sense of rhythm, beat, tempo, and a talent for composition. This is a genetic trait, and it is present in such an overwhelming amount in one ethnic group, Jews. Why? For generations in small shtetls, Jewish women, listening to chanting prayers of their husbands and surrounded by musical non-stop cantorial prayers, at home whispered these heartfelt melodies as improvised prayers to their Jewish infants to help their babies to fall asleep or calm them down in times of hunger or danger, approaching enemy. Started as a survival mechanism, this haunting, beautiful prayers, lullabies, moved from one generation to another, shaping inherent musical trait that became a part of the Jewish DNA. That is why so many Jewish children at a very young age feel music inside them as an irresistible desire to chant, hum, sing, get fascinated by tunes, and express their musicality on a musical instrument or compose a tune that is playing inside their brains. It is a desire to reproduce this engraved internal musicality, this survival bond that helped to save the nation through the centuries of atrocities. Suffering, survival, ingenuity. Tremendous overrepresentation of Jews in psychological and philosophical sciences, psychology, psychoanalysis, psychiatry, therapy, philosophy, paints an important picture. You cannot be a good psychologist or philosopher if you lack an inherent, genetic ability of deep analytical thinking to help solve complex problems that require reasoning, logic, imagination, and vision at that highest level that is necessary for a breakthrough in science or music. It cannot be taught. Genetics does play a significant role in defining extraordinary abilities of Jewish people. To summarize, centuries of persecutions, Talmudic studies, and Jewish melodies have contributed to this clear, elevated Jewish IQ and deep musicality that became a true gift of Jewish people to the world. These are genetic gifts, and these gifts are in abundance in one ethnic group, people of Jewish descent. So can we answer a not so simple question? Is there an intellectual advantage to be Jewish? Question about Jewish genius. In the words of former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres, there is something in our DNA that makes us Jews never feel satisfied. Jewish people do not allow failure to get in their way. As the writer Samuel Beckett, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1969, wrote, "Try again, fail better." Genetic traits are very strong, and it may take a few generations before they express themselves and create a genius. Celebrated Austrian composer and violinist of the 19th century, Johann Strauss II, was gifted beyond his peers and was called the Waltz King. He composed 500 beautiful waltzes, polkas, operettas, and dance music. And Johann Strauss II was known all over Europe for his compositions. In modern times, it's hard to imagine a summer or classical concert where Strauss's waltzes would not be played. Despite his father, also a well-known composer Johann Strauss I, who was whipping his son for love of music and playing the violin, little Johann could not stop loving playing and composing music. It played inside his brain. As much as Nazis tried to conceal it, Johann Strauss II paternal great-grandfather was a Hungarian Jew. In spite of 2 generations of baptizing and christened ancestors, Strauss heard his calling, his inherent, passed through 3 generations from his Jewish great-grandfather, musical talent that he shared with the world. If you happen to read about someone who you have never seen or heard before, a new prodigious young scientist or a virtuoso musician who demonstrated an unmatched brilliance of either scientific discovery or unrivaled depth of musical performance, you might, just might assume that this person very likely belongs to this special ethnic tribe of true intellectuals, Jewish people. I checked. It works almost every time. Human qualities of brilliant Jewish people. When you listen to lectures of Richard Feynman explaining the laws of physics, or listen to piano of Vladimir Horowitz playing Schumann, or Arthur Rubinstein playing Chopin, you know you are in the presence of God, His special creations, who achieve perfection cognitively, emotionally, or spiritually. So what human qualities do Jewish people, at least the best of them, possess that define their extraordinary talents? Number 1. Observational research has shown that many bright Jewish individuals are highly sensitive people, expressing higher than average level of personal emotional sensitivity and fragility with the world around them. Jewish people are also known as shy and introverted, often seeking quiet places as a way of solitude, to express their inner world and creativity in one way or another. They can feel easily overwhelmed with the need to retreat into a quiet place, to rest and recharge. Elaine Aron, studying highly sensitive adults, highly sensitive people, noticed that our world has about 15 to 20% of these overly sensitive people. It appears from our own research that Jewish people, especially those of the intellectual and creative type, overwhelmingly belong to this category of HSPs, highly sensitive person. Number 2. Another quality of these thin-skinned, touchy individuals with vivid imagination is a pronounced sensuality of people with tender and gentle souls, longing for love and relationships. The mix of sensuality that often transcends into frank sexuality, romanticism and sentimentalism, shyness and sadness, moodiness and nostalgia, is a common makeup of many Jewish intellectuals. Number 3. As many creative people, Jewish people can show a tendency to a depressive and melancholic disposition, with behavioral tendency of chronic anxiousness and worry, and who often express a feeling of sadness. Christoph Liebold, in his book about Leonard Cohen, described this sadness quality as melancholy of unhappy consciousness. Quality of Jewish sadness is often explained through the lens of painful generational history when almost every Jewish family lost relatives during the Holocaust of the 20th century Europe. This ethnic intensity of pain can be traced further into the 18th and 19th century of pogroms and exterminations. This pain does not dilute, dissolve, or disappear with new generations of Jews, and often has a transgenerational effect of ancestral guilt and profound grief for the loved and lost grandparents and great-grandparents, and an ability to change anything in that inherited painful history. Jewish people can be described as the people of broken hallelujah, from the famous song of Leonard Cohen, with sad emotional inheritance and deep sorrow and anxiety. In fact, Leonard Cohen lamented that Jews are professionals of suffering. Number 4. Many Jewish intellectuals with a high level of IQ possess their individual awareness and sense of worth, possessing an amazing creativity and on a mission to perfection. Number 5. Collectively, Jewish people are often called by different terms. Religiously or spiritually, they are often described as people of the book, citing the eternal bond between Jews and their Jewish Bible or Torah, or chosen people, or light unto the nations, signifying commitment between God and the Jewish people and promise to uphold commandments, mitzvot, and bring them to the world and promote ethical behavior and justice. Historically and even emotionally, Jewish people can be also described as people of sorrow or people of minor keys, people who remember their painful past and yearn to ease the pain of their ancestors and prevent future sufferings. Jewish people gravitate towards healing professions like medicine, psychology, and therapy in an attempt to ease suffering of people. They also choose political actions in the pursuit of social justice to help those who are less fortunate. In summary, intellectual Jews tend to look for deeper meaning in everything they do. They often experience internal struggles and inner pains. That struggle can find its realization in the burst of creativity. That Jewish moody creativity, in its best examples, demonstrates a multi-layered imagination of many brilliant Jewish thinkers, their high intellectual output, and consistent determination. Jewish creations don't just open your eyes, they touch your heart and soul. From Christopher Liebold about Leonard Cohen. Jewish world is abundant with creative talents who spend their life in a constant search for clues of the universe and who are driven to perfection and transcendence. Jewish brilliance. Be kind to these people. Let's talk about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, like any form of xenophobia, usually inflicts someone's brain at the young and vulnerable age from the unfortunate exposure to a horrible instructor friend who can brainwash a young and sensitive mind into hate and ignorance. This part of the writing here is for those who choose to preach this hateful doctrine. I want to ask this person a few important questions. Can you, anti-Semite, imagine a Jew, male or female, young or old, becoming a human bomb on a bus or street intersection in any city in the world, blowing yourself into pieces and killing everyone around, children, women, civilians, bystanders, pedestrians, for any religious reason? I know you can't. People of other religions do it. Jewish people do not do such horrible things for any reason. Can you imagine a Jewish person driving his car and plowing it into civilians in a European city or America? Peaceful people walking during the festival or parade, celebrating holidays, playing with children or buying food at the farmers' markets, and killing tens and butchering hundreds in the process. I know you can't. People of other religions do it. Jewish people do not do such awful things. They value human life. Can you imagine Jewish people assembling in an angry mob for the purpose of burning, looting, and stealing, breaking windows of shops, breaking into houses, putting shops and cars on fire, damaging properties, and injuring and killing people? I know you can't. Other people do this. Jewish people do not do such terrible things. Can you imagine all these terrible crimes committed by Jewish people? No, never. You cannot imagine these horrible crimes committed by Jewish people even if you're an anti-Semite. You know better. The Jewish people do not steal, loot, damage properties. They do not blow themselves for any reason and kill innocent people around them for any reason. Jewish people don't fly planes into the buildings, and they are not suicide bombers. Jewish people are not thieves, criminals, or violent people as a group. They would be appalled to even consider these brutal behaviors. They would feel horrendous guilt, and their parents would feel eternal shame. Choosing to blame Jews or hate them, brainwashed with lies, you choose to be on the wrong side of humanity and ignore reality and Jewish history. So we agree that Jewish people are not criminals. They do not organize or perform these terrible crimes as a whole. So what do? We already discussed in length that they create and perform. But they also, not by desire, but by sheer necessity, protect their own people, their spiritual and religious beliefs, and defend their Jewish state from enemies that surround their young nation. Surrounded by Arab states that hate Israel, this young nation has been consistently attacked for the last almost 80 years of her existence. Jewish people have become warriors of their nation in time of need and settled to defend their country with all their might, honoring their painful history filled with pogroms, massacres, and physical extermination, and making sure that horrors of their dreadful past would never happen again. Never again is the motto of Jewish nation that survived Holocaust. A sign that was engraved after the World War II on the entrance of the Dachau concentration camp in Germany. A symbol of Jewish endurance and perseverance, a hope of Jewish people to hold on to their land, an ancient land of Jews, and protect it by any means as the only way to guarantee life versus death, ability to preserve their nation, their ethnic culture, and their people versus loss of everything, people, memory, culture, the only way to defend and protect Jewish people against slaughter. Educated people all over the world respect Jewish people for these vast accomplishments. Educated people who know Jewish history and have been exposed to Jewish brilliance cannot become anti-Semites by definition. What do educated people of science, music, and art think about Jewish people? Professional musicians admire Jewish people for their enormous contribution to the world of music and cinema over many centuries, and musical brilliance performing and conducting classic orchestras all over the world where they are overrepresented. Mathematicians admire Jewish people for their immense contribution to the mathematical sciences, especially physics, and their scientific, brilliant, noble minds. Vast majority of educated and intelligent people of any ethnic background respect Jewish people for their resilience despite centuries of persecution, scientific and musical contributions to their societies, excellence in teaching and education, superiority in psychology, for their family values, empathy, human principles and morals, for their constant desire to fight injustices and discrimination and maintain civil liberties and rights of people of any nation, and for their untiring mission to help to repair the troubled world. To study anti-Semitism as a cornered hatred of uneducated minority, let's choose music and ignore for now all other scientific accomplishments of Jews. The premise is that anti-Semite will not like anything produced by Jews, especially music, because music composed by Jewish people has a pronounced or veiled expression of sadness that you can hear in every note. Even if this music was written as a festive Christmas song, it will have that famous, so touchy and so loved Jewish longing that anti-Semite will not understand and will not like. The 10 brilliant American musicians of the 20th century that we would like to use here are Leonard Bernstein, Vladimir Horowitz, Arthur Rubinstein, Irving Berlin, George Gershwin, Itzhak Perlman, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, Paul Simon, and Billy Joel. We hope that other hundreds of outstanding American Jewish musicians will forgive us for not using their name and fame in this little experiment. If you ask ChatGPT, you trust this source or not, about the worldwide sales of concerts or amount of sold music albums, Billy Joel, 150 million attended his concert or bought his records. Bob Dylan, 125 million. Simon and Garfunkel, 100 million. Leonard Bernstein, 30 million. Leonard Cohen, 25 million people. Irving Berlin and George Gershwin together, 50 millions. If we summarize all this large fan base together, all these numbers, we will see that about 500 million people, 500 million people loved these outstanding Jewish artists to the point of visiting their concerts, buying their records to enjoy their music. Anti-Semites must be truly angry to know that 500 million people for the last 60 years of the 20th century, or about the last 2 generations of people worldwide, are not on their side. And this is just music we're discussing. If we add math, physics, chemistry, psychology, cinematography, it will be clear that admiration for Jewish talent is in billions of people on planet Earth, and so overwhelming that hate toward Jews for any reason is not only ridiculous but truly sad and deserted. If you, I'm addressing anti-Semite, understand all these facts, know painful history of Jewish people and history behind the creation of the State of Israel, if you are aware of Jewish accomplishments, and if you are a person of integrity, you cannot be an anti-Semite. Anti-Semitism stems from lack of education or ignorance, often plain stupidity, and sadly, usually expressed by biased individuals with personal unhappiness and unrealized anger. Jewish brilliance, be kind to these people. Conclusion: a final tribute to Jewish contribution to the world. The story of Jewish people is not one of victimhood, but of victory. Not through weapons, but through wisdom, not through conquests, but through creations. They have illuminated humanity's path, proving that even in the darkest times, the light of knowledge and brilliance endures. Let's name some of these brilliant people one more time. outstanding philosophers and poets, from Moses Maimonides, Morocco, Egypt, to Baruch de Spinoza, Dutch, to Moses Mendelssohn, Germany, to Heinrich Heine, Germany, to Franz Kafka, Czech, to Martin Buber, Germany. Profound writers from Marcel Proust, France, to S.Y. Agnon, Israel, to Boris Pasternak, Russia, to Saul Bellow, Israel, to Isaac Bashevis Singer, United States, to Joseph Brodsky, Russia, and Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen, United States. Extraordinary scientists, from Albert Einstein to Niels Bohr, to Emmy Noether, to Edward Teller, Leo Szilard, to Robert Oppenheimer and Richard Feynman. Renowned psychologists, researchers, and physicians, from Sigmund Freud to Jonas Salk, to Paul Ehrlich, to Rosalind Franklin. Astonishing artists, from Amadeo Modigliani to Camille Pissarro, to Frida Kahlo, to Mark Rothko, to Marc Chagall. Celebrated composers, from Felix Mendelssohn to Gustav Mahler, to George Gershwin to Leonard Bernstein. Piano prodigies and performers, from Yefim Bronfman to Emil Gilels, to Arthur Rubinstein, to Vladimir Horowitz, to Menachem Pressler, to Daniel Barenboim, to Martha Argerich, to Evgeny Kissin. Violin geniuses, from Yasha Heifetz to Yehudi Menuhin, to Isaac Stern, to David Oistrakh, to Itzhak Perlman, to Maxim Vengerov and Joshua Bell. Celebrated musicians, from Berry Sisters to Neil Diamond, to Lenny Kravitz, to Paul Simon, to Vladimir Vysotsky, who is often called the Russian Bob Dylan, to Leonard Cohen. Eminent actors, directors, and movie personalities, from Sarah Bernhardt to Barbara Streisand, to Stanley Kubrick, to Woody Allen, to Roman Polanski and Steven Spielberg. Renowned fashion designers, from Levi Strauss to Calvin Klein to Ralph Lauren. Famous financiers and bankers, from Samuel Oppenheimer to Mayer Rothschild, to Marcus Goldman, to Alan Greenspan. Renowned politicians and statesmen, from Benjamin Disraeli, England, to Yakov Sverdlov, Russia, to Alexandre Millerand, France, to David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, and Shimon Peres, Israel, to Henry Kissinger, United States, to Angela Merkel, Germany, to Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine, to Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico. From being insulted and oppressed to achieving extraordinary heights in physics, mathematics, medicine, music, psychology, literature, politics. Be kind to these people. For everything Jewish people have accomplished over the centuries and their contribution to the world, what they often ask is not a praise and display of gratitude, but just to be left alone. There has been so much hateful anti-Semitism for many centuries, from the cultural isolation, educational restrictions, frank-to-the-face hate and scornful mocking, to physical extermination through the pogroms and Holocaust. The Jews often want to be just left unnoticed, without a particular display of any appreciation. Admirations and celebrations of Jewish contribution to the world and Jewish brilliance are a bonus and is highly appreciated by Jewish people, but not specifically asked for. Leonard Cohen brilliantly expressed this generational fear and personal fragility and often surrender of Jewish people in his spiritual, deeply moving and introspective song, "If it be your will that I speak no more, and my voice be still as it was before, I will speak no more. I shall abide until I am spoken for. if it be your will. Remembrance. Can you imagine that 6 million Jewish people who perished in the Holocaust in the World War II would have been saved, would have survived? We would have today not 16 million, but possibly 30 million Jewish people on earth. We would have so many brilliant Jewish physicists and physicians, musicians and economists, psychologists and writers, contributing to the world with their intellect and immense human capacity for creativity. If all the perished beautiful people survived, and their many ancestors continue the tradition of excellence started centuries ago by Jewish sages, the world would have been a better and safer place. Be kind to these people. Jewish legacy. Salman Rushdie wrote, "The past is a country from which we have all emigrated. That its loss is a part of our common humanity. We all have a past that influences our present. Our histories and origins shape our identities and experiences. Both Jewish struggle and genius have had an immense positive influence on the world, more than we can all imagine. The deep cultural legacy that Jews inherited from their ancestors and brought on their shoulders into their present shaped our intertwined modern world and became part of its blended cultural reality. From Albert Einstein to Leonard Cohen, from astonishing physical laws of the universe that transcend time, to metaphysical commandments of heaven expressed in haunting melodies, Jewish people created this formula of excellence, the formula that keeps them safe and that they carry from generation to generation. This formula is about the priesthood of chosen people with a mission to teach, to share, to preserve, to abide, to follow, and to carry the torch. Without presence and contribution of Jewish people, our world would be entirely different place." Leonard Cohen, one of the best modern Jewish poet-philosophers, a melancholic, creative and radiant songwriter genius, a true Kohanim from a Hebrew word for a priest, a Jewish saint longing for truth in everything, who taught us that the darkness is the prelude to light, touchingly wrote, "I wish there was a treaty we could sign. I do not care who takes this bloody hill. I am angry and I am tired all the time. I wish there was a treaty between your love and mine." In his song Anthem, he added tender and bitterly optimistic lines summarizing all the human suffering and expressing hopes for peace with tears of joy, holy tears. "Ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Thank you.